We played our song. And by the way, I didn't know that we were going to play that song until about 2 minutes before I picked it. And as soon as it started, everybody started singing. I was like, what's going on here? It's like we rehearsed it, guys. Everybody, that was beautiful. Thank you so much for joining in with your voices on that song. One of my favorites. And when in doubt, the Beatles, right? I mean, it's hard to go wrong. So many beautiful songs that they've made and so many deep, profound lyrics. So yeah, welcome everybody. Welcome to the Center of Love. I see some new faces. I see some familiar faces, and I'm happy for both. First and foremost, would like to say welcome to all the friends online, Lizzie, Lori, Grant, and Lassia.
And Colleen.
And Colleen, oh, I missed, oh, there she is.
Hiding.
Hiding, that's okay. You don't have to show your faces. This is the thing about our community. You show up as you are, when you want to. Your eternal soul is not on the line. You don't have to show up every second Sunday for salvation. You just show up here because you want to be with people who are on similar paths. Not like-minded, like-hearted. Because we all have different opinions, different political backgrounds, different vaccination statuses or whatever. But it doesn't matter because underneath it, we recognize that there's a common core of humanity. And at the center of that core is love. That's why we're here. So for the new people out there, what is the Center of Love? Center of Love is a community with a purpose. We've looked at the state of the world out there. We've seen that there's an excess of individuality, separation, division, and we've decided that the best way to counter that is not with more division, but with love and unity, coming together and supporting one another, accepting each other, even when we see things a little bit differently, because we recognize, once again, that underneath, we are universally alike. The other thing about the Center of Love is it's not just a community. It's also you, and you, and you, and you. Each and every single one of us here is the center of love. Center of love is right here. And so when you leave this place in an hour and a half, you don't have to worry that you've left the center because the center is where you are. I always tell people, if you're looking for it, it's at the corner of here and now. So you're never without it. You're always in the center of love. Now, who are we as a community? Well, we come from many different backgrounds, age groups, socioeconomic statuses. But at the end of the day, what we recognize here is that every member is both a teacher and a student. So you're never going to see a reverend up here preaching to you, telling you what's what. What you're going to get is individual perspectives and truths based on past experiences and inner work and studies and all kinds of things. So you don't ever have to worry that there's a central authority beating you over the head with some kind of doctrine, because you're responsible for your own doctrine. And we expect you to be here as a responsible, spiritually mature person who's taking accountability for their own beliefs. So we don't shy away from concepts like God, faith, worship. Instead, what we do is we take those terms back from the organized religions that have been using them as cudgels to beat us over the heads for generations. We take those words back, we define them for ourselves, and then we honor them in our own lives. What we're all about here is defining our own truths and then living those truths authentically, and then together supporting each other on that path. So that's what this community is about. Welcome. Thank you for being here. By the way, my name's Ollie. I think most of you know me. And I'm happy to be your spiritual coordinator, if you will, in this community. So it's an honor and a privilege. And before we welcome Cressa to introduce our speaker today, I wanted to read something from a book that my family and I have been reading daily, or trying to read daily. We don't always succeed. It's 365 Days of Tao. And if in case you don't know, the Tao is near and dear to my heart. It's a Chinese philosophy, spiritual, mystical. And we try to read it daily with our kids. Sometimes it goes way over all of our heads. Sometimes we read something and it's like, wow. And so what I wanted to share with you today is a little bit related to what I said about individual truths, right? Each one of us has our own truth. And so this was from day 50 of our daily Tao. If all perception of reality is subjective, some schools of thought suggest that we should therefore see everything as unreal. By contrast, followers of the Tao, followers of the way, maintain that we must still interact with the world. If we do not take initiative and work with this phenomena of projecting and receiving the echoes of meaning, the world will not exist for us at all. As long as we remember that meanings we attribute to objects are subjective, we will avoid mistakes. And so when you feel really strongly about something, you know that it's the truth, damn it, just remember, meanings we attribute to objects are subjective. If you remember that, we will avoid mistakes. Food for thought for you, my friends, on this fine Sunday. And now, without further ado, I welcome Cressida. Watch your step. There is a loose wire here to introduce our speaker.
Good morning, everyone. I'm so glad you're all here. I see your wonderful smiling faces. I have the great pleasure of introducing our speaker today. I have known Dr. Christina for 10 years, I think now, right? Yeah, and she's been keeping this body kind of organized. She went to school to Palmer College for chiropractic, and it's the founding school. But Christina's approach is very different than any chiropractor I have ever been to. That's why I sought her out. I wanted something different. She has more of an energetic approach, and she does what's called best work. And I have to kind of bioenergetic synchronization technique. So get your mouth around that one. And I've been very grateful to her. There's many times after a session that, things I'm back to normal again, and I give her a big hug because I'm so grateful. So it's my privilege today to welcome Dr. Christina to come and share her wisdom and knowledge with us.
Hello, everyone. Lovely to be here with such a fantastic group of people with such a beautiful concept that you guys have gathering. It's fantastic. And grateful to be invited by Cressa and Lasia, hi, wherever she went. Hopefully feeling good. And happy to be here. What I wanted to share with you guys is an exercise we're going to get into. So we're going to get moving here today because I want to leave everybody with some valuable tools you can use when you go home to help you really calm and reorganize your nervous system on your own. I am so thankful and grateful, as Chris has said, I did get the opportunity to go to the founding school of chiropractic where it all began. Where we learned the concepts that healing comes from above down, inside out, and learning how to embrace not only the flow of the nervous system, but the energy system that is involved in this body. So this actually goes back to the origins of chiropractic that people don't necessarily understand, because unfortunately, especially here in Canada, we've gotten into this mode of chiropractors being, again, pain-based and symptom-based. And, I just go when it hurts. And yep. How do I deal with, my inflammation in my elbow or my achy neck or... So what we want to look is deeper into what is the source of the major lack of flow or interference happening within that body. And that is at the true source of what chiropractic was founded on. There is that healing comes from above down, inside out. We need to just figure out and remove the interference that's there. We had the blessing of, does everybody know who people like Bruce Lipton are? Like, he was one of my teachers at school, and being exposed to Dr. Joe Dispenza, and I've worked with him and, throughout the years, but I actually was raised with many of these concepts as well. Too, with the mom who would travel from deep Machosen to the Y for yoga and had her first out-of-body experience pregnant with me. So I've been around all of this. So it just seems normal to me that we are all energy beings. But I understand that that's a new concept for many too, but maybe not in this crowd. So, which is great. So what we want to do is look for where there is interference that is coming from the brain that is short circuiting different signals to our body, or responding in an appropriate fight or flight, One of my mentors, Dr. Morter, who developed BEST or bioenergetic synchronization technique, is looking at how the fight or flight gets stored within our memory patterns of our bodies. And then as it gets activated in our subconscious brain, starts to do things like tighten up our shoulder, and our shoulder ends up around our ear, and we're not really sure why our neck is starting to hurt. Yes, there can be biomechanical things going on in there. And that's one of my other areas of specialty is how do I get that head right back over center? Because we want to open up the vagus nerve. We want to open up the brain stem. There's so much delicate anatomy that goes on here that is responsible for communication and regulation of the whole body. So we do want to make sure those gateways are open. So there is some very specific techniques founded in NUCA, National Upper Cervical Chiropractic Association, that I do to open those channels up on a physical level. But also, like I said, our purpose here today is how can we give you some tools to open that up on your own there at home? So I encourage everyone, for one, to just look into polyvagal exercises online. So I'm not going to take time to go over those kind of exercises today, because there's amazing resources available of people who have done some great videos and things like that to stimulate your vagus nerve there to help with that communication between the gut and the brain and all of the organ systems to open that up. What we're going to work on is the Morter March, which is developed by Dr. Morter, who's been teaching this technique for over 50 years. He was past president of chiropractic colleges. Princes and royalty would send jet planes to pick him up and come work with him in the Middle East and different areas around the world. He was part of peace talks, which won the Nobel Peace Prize in the background. He was treating some of these Middle East leaders through peace talks, doing things like this exercise there to help create world peace there. So very powerful man. Unfortunately, he has passed, but has anybody heard of Dr. Sue Morter? Is with the energy codes, is his daughter, and she's doing fantastic work. I consider her one of my mentors and introduced me to some of this work. As well as his two sons as well, Dr. Ted and Tom, are teaching the chiropractic side of it still. So what this is about is how to tap into where we are holding patterns within that nervous system. So I want everyone to focus on where they're feeling something in their life that is creating a block for them, or creating a sensation in their bodies where they're not having proper flow happening. But more importantly, we want to define this into an I am thankful and grateful for statement to go along with this exercise. So these are going to be those kind of little hot topics that kind of take you down the rabbit hole. Because unfortunately, it only takes 60 seconds to light up the whole chemical pathway within our body. So as we've stored these little survival memory patterns, or we call them subconscious emotional memory overrides, a lot of those start at 3 months in utero until the age of 2. So we start to develop this cerebral cortex in utero still. So we're actually responding a lot on a subconscious level to what our mother's emotions were when we were pregnant there, and what those first 2 years of life were all about. That's why in many different practices, they call it mother, father, teacher, preacher there, because those are people that tend to be around us a lot in those developing years of our belief systems and how we perceive the world around us. There's another big chunk that happens before the age of 8. And then we're now knowing that there's even hardwiring in your prefrontal cortex that is still going on until we're around 24 years old. So it's never too late to make changes, for one, but also that's why sometimes it doesn't make sense why our bodies and why we're responding to situations the way we do, because sometimes it can be that underlining old ingrained patterns that then started in those early developmental years And then we have other experiences that keep adding that hardwiring to it. So we get this initial memory pattern, which is memorizing the sensory things around us that got triggered at that point in time. So a smell can take us back there. A sound can take us back there. A good thing or a thing people can really relate to is, say, you know, you get into 20 years of marriage, for example, and your spouse can use a certain tone. And it just reminds you of, say, your mother or father's tone when you were little. And all of a sudden you're in this reaction mode and you're not even aware of, why did I react so much that way? It's a lot to do with it's going way back. And you've lit up the fireworks up there. So what we want to do is look for the ways we can dampen those fireworks. And the best technique is getting you into the deeper of it. However, this exercise can help you in that day-to-day management of some of those fight or flight processes that are happening within the body. So again, back to that, it takes 60 seconds to plunk into, say, a thought that you're having that's not serving you, that it's linked into something that's not feeling good in your life that's happening right now. And the trick is it takes over 20 minutes for your nervous system to come back out of it once you realize you're in it. So that's half the key, is the awareness that, oh, I went down that rabbit hole and I'm stuck. And why 20 minutes later am I still thinking about this? There, right?
Amen.
So once we have that awareness of, oh my goodness, I've been stuck thinking about this for 20 minutes and there's nothing that constructive I've done about this, and it's just tightening up and feeling yucky in my whole body, is okay, let's Morter March this out. Here is one of the things you can do. Of course, there's many breathing techniques. We'll get into that with meditation. But let's get into this stretch that can help you pull out faster than that 20 minutes there. Now, the other beautiful thing about this is we're going to get into the chiropractic side of it. Helps you coordinate your brain with your body and your muscles and get these signals firing. There's all these, it's a really short and simple exercise, but part of it is going to be with your affirmation. You're going to be stimulating your prefrontal cortex. And what science is now telling us, when we stimulate the prefrontal cortex, which is our interpretation of how we see the world around us, our proprioception, there's all kinds of kind of the feelings, emotions, processing that goes on up there. There's lots of things, but that's the big one we're going to focus on today. When we go into fight or flight, it actually flips off that prefrontal cortex. And actually, we now know through some great studies that it turns off the little muscles at the base of your neck, all around that important vagus nerve there. It turns off these important muscles that support our spine. And then our big muscles go into defense physiology and get tight. So I'm not quite sure on the design nature of this, but when we go into survival mode, we become bobbleheads. We have this little instability happening in our spine, and then our big muscles are getting ready to fight that bear or freeze, or depending on what part of the nervous system getting activated. But then that starts to tug on those little vulnerable vertebrae. So we want to nip that in the bud before it has a chance to start pulling on those vertebrae and pulling us into misalignment there. And again, back to this Morter March is an exercise that we can do to help control that. So, and then we've got, so the prefrontal cortex is being activated by your I am statement. Then we are going to do some eye positioning. So there's going to be some one eye closed practice. For the longest time, I couldn't do both eyes, one eye is closed. I encourage you to sit in the mirror and look at yourself and work with that muscle. You might have a big emotional release because there's a reason some of those muscles aren't working, that you can't close both eyes. You should be able to do that. So working through that, but do your best today if you're struggling with that. We're going to stretch every major muscle group within the body. So we're activating the cerebellum back here, which has 50% of your brain's neurons back there and is responsible for all our muscles and a lot of other things too. But that's the big one we're focusing on today, is that coordination of those muscles. We're going to be working with some breathing techniques with this. that are going to activate, again, sympathetic, parasympathetic flow within the body. So gas pedals and brakes in there, and overall a neurological upgrade that we're going to be doing with this exercise.
That's amazing. All right, everybody. How was it? How? Thank you, Dr. Christina, for a very informative, very practically useful talk and presentation. Really appreciate your presence here. Thank you. It's been a long time coming. Glad you could make it.
My pleasure.
And, hope you can make it again. I'd love to have you in any capacity. So there you go. Yeah, just wanted to give a quick shout out. Like always, we have our one of our resident artists, Linda, who's not here today, but she sent this along with her love. So again, I've just every time she brings something new, I'm like, oh.
Yeah, she's an amazing artist.
Yeah, like we have other artists in the community too. So this wall is open. If you want to bring a painting on a Sunday, come on over, bring it. We'll make room and we'll put more up there, because part of this community, you know, we're a spiritual community. What does that mean? We look at it personally, and I think most of us do, as a three-pronged proposition. Okay, you are mind, you are body, and you are spirit. And I think as a community, before many of you got here, a few of us were in Solomon's temple worshiping the physical and getting fit, and that's a spiritual exercise. You get like endorphin rushes and all that fun stuff, right? Well, art and creativity are very much spiritual. Creativity is love in motion. You're literally manifesting beauty from within yourself with your talent and your skills. And so there's no limits to what spirituality is for us in this community. There's no dogma. We're open and we're welcoming, and we're so grateful that all of you can be here.